let's talk about shutter speed. Shutter speed is one of the major settings on your digital SLR. It's one that affects your shot greatly. And your shutter speed is used for many different reasons. I'll get into that in a little bit. But what exactly is happening is there is a flap, a mirror that is blocking your sensor. And as you press the button, that mirror gets out of the way and exposes a sensor. That sensor is what grabs the image and saves it onto your memory card. The shutter speed is how long that flap is open for to gather the information. So if it's a very bright day and there's a lot of sun, that flap doesn't need to be open for that long to gather some light information. However, if it's a very dark shooting situation, that flap has to be open for longer to gather more lighting information. The main thing, so first thing I want you to do is get your digital SLR, go to the settings knob, and put it to something called S or TV. It's either one of those two names. Put it on there, and what this means is now you get to adjust just your shutter speed, and everything else is decided by the camera. So now you have complete control of your shutter speed. Now, the funny thing with shutter speed is they usually talk in terms of an inverse, actually. So a very fast shutter speed, so some people might say, oh, you know, my shutter speed's at 5,000. That's a very fast shutter speed. While some people might say, oh, my shutter speed is at 30. That's a very slow shutter speed. And the reason why is because it's 1 over 5,000ths of a second. So when people usually refer to shutter speed, they usually just say the bottom number until they get to actual full second shooting. That's usually when they'll say, oh, I was shooting at 2 full seconds, or I was shooting at 10 full seconds. And this is where it gets even a little bit more confusing, is some camera bodies doesn't show the 1 over, you know, whatever number, but just shows the bottom number. So you have to be mindful of that. But let me just give you an example of what's occurring. Okay, I'm going to put my shutter speed now to, I'm going to put it to 200. Okay, so that is 1 over 200. Okay, and you're going to see here, right, when I press it, see how quickly that flap went up and down? I put a light behind here so you could see exactly what the mirror was doing. But see how quickly that flap went up and down? It was the blink of an eye. In fact, you probably might not be able to see it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this shutter speed to, let's say, 6. So this is now 1 over 6 seconds. So this is only 1/6 of a second. Let's see. A lot slower. Now I'll even take it a little bit further, and I'll actually go down to open it to 4 full seconds. So that shutter is open for 4 full seconds. So again, if you go through the spectrum, most cameras will go from bulb, which is however long you want it open to like, let's say, like 30 seconds, to further down, all the way up to 1/8000th of a second. So as you change the seconds, or as you change the shutter speed, you're doing different things. You're either letting the light hit your sensor for a longer period of time, or you're letting your light hit the sensor for a shorter period of time. Now, why is this important? In some cases, you wish to freeze the action, really capture the moment in time. Like, let's say, for instance, you know, the golf head impacting the golf ball, you know, right at that exact moment. You'll need a really high shutter speed to capture that exact moment, something like 1/8000th of a second. But at 1/8000th of a second, there isn't that much time to allow light to come in. So your shooting situation has to be very bright to capture that. Or let's say now you're in a very dark situation, you know, somewhere where it's inside a house. Now people don't move around too quickly, and it's very dark inside a house. You want to open up that shutter for a little bit longer to gather as much light in as possible. So now you might be at 1/60th of a second. And this is why it's important to know, which shutter speed obtains what. So the best way to do that is just to practice. Put it to 1/200th and start taking pictures of motion and see what kind of effect it gives you. Change it to 1/8000th and see what kind of effect it gives you. Or change it down to 2 full seconds and see what kind of effect that gives you. Just go through each, just fiddle around. So again, put your camera onto shutter priority, TV, or in some cases S, and just start changing the settings and start shooting and seeing what happens to the shot.